Every small town has its legends, and Pine Hollow was no different. Deep within its surrounding forests lay a place called the Whispering Woods. The name was no mere metaphor. Anyone who wandered too far within its confines would swear they heard faint whispers. Most folks in Pine Hollow chalked it up to the wind through the trees, but a few insisted the voices were real. Warnings, perhaps, or something darker. Carly didn't believe in legends. At 19, she was pragmatic, driven by logic, and eager to prove herself. She had heard the tales growing up and, like any rebellious teenager, rolled her eyes at the local superstitions. So when a friend dared her to camp overnight in the woods alone, she accepted without hesitation. She packed light, a tent, a flashlight, some snacks, and her trusty journal. She figured she could spend the night jotting down her thoughts, maybe sketching the scenery, and come back with bragging rights. As she ventured into the forest, she couldn't help but admire its beauty. The dense canopy filtered sunlight into soft beams, and the earthy scent of moss and fallen leaves was oddly comforting. She found a small clearing near a stream and set up her tent as twilight settled in. When night fell, the whispers began. At first, Carly thought it was just the sound of the wind brushing through the trees, but as the hours stretched on, the sounds grew distinct, like voices just out of reach. She strained to listen, her pulse quickening. "Leave!" The word was barely audible, but it chilled her to the bone. She shone her flashlight into the darkness, revealing nothing but trees and shadows. Laughing nervously to herself, she muttered, "Okay, Carly, get a grip. It's just your imagination." But the whispers didn't stop. Not safe. Danger. Her heart pounded in her chest. She zipped herself into the tent, clutching her flashlight like a weapon. Hours passed as she sat in silence, the whispers circling her like a pack of predators. She convinced herself she was being silly, that exhaustion and fear were playing tricks on her mind. At some point, she must have drifted into an uneasy sleep. When she awoke, it was still dark. Her flashlight was off, and her tent felt stifling. As she reached for the zipper, she froze. Someone, or something, was outside. She could hear heavy breathing, too human to dismiss, too guttural to belong to an animal. Her mind raced. Was it a bear? A person? Then came the scratching. Slow, deliberate movements of nails or claws against the fabric of her tent. Panic surged through her veins. She scrambled for her phone, her fingers trembling as she activated the flashlight app. The scratching stopped. "Who's there?" she whispered, her voice shaking. No reply. Steeling herself, she unzipped the tent in one swift motion and thrust her phone light into the darkness. There was nothing, just trees, the faint rustling of leaves, and the endless, oppressive silence of the woods. And then she saw them. Footprints. Bare, human footprints pressed into the soft earth, leading away from her tent. Carly's blood ran cold. They hadn't been there before. She grabbed her belongings and bolted, leaving the tent behind. She didn't stop running until she saw the faint glow of dawn on the horizon and the distant outlines of Pine Hollow's rooftops. Relief washed over her as she stumbled into her home. She locked the door behind her and collapsed on the couch, heart pounding. As she sat there, trying to catch her breath, a new sound emerged, a faint rhythmic tapping. She turned her head toward the living room window. Pressed against the glass was a handprint, large and smeared, as if someone had dragged their palm down the surface. Her phone buzzed, a notification. She hesitated, then unlocked it. There was a photo in her camera roll she hadn't taken, a shot of her sleeping in her tent, illuminated by the faint glow of her flashlight. The timestamp read 3:47 a.m.